to episode number 3 of Remembering Our Generations. As everybody can see, Vince and I come from two different generations. So what this show is going to be all about is we're going to be talking about music from as far back as the 1950s, 60s, 70s, whatever we want to talk about. But today, Vince, we are going to be talking about one of the most iconic moments in music, television, pop culture history. And of course, I'm talking about the Beatles' appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, unlike myself, you were there at the time. So share with us what that experience was like seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show when it actually aired, as opposed to somebody like me watching it on YouTube.
Oh, gotcha. Well, first of all, to understand something, the date, February 9th, 1964, just doing a little bit of research, they had 73 million people watching. In America, we had 192 million population total. So
Wow.
that's like about 37, 38% of the population watching at one time. Absolutely incredible. Before that had happened, their music had broken in America for a month or so. So everybody was really excited that they came along. And to just backtrack a little bit, remember November 25th, 63, Kennedy was assassinated. So the country was in a total dire, horrible mood. And the Beatles came and just lifted all of our spirits. And that moment, you're right, changed the course of music history forever. And from my particular memory, my family had a house on Long Island with a basement. The four kids, my youngest brother, my two sisters who were younger, my mom and dad, all gathered around this TV to watch this event. So they come on, and I get goosebumps, and I'm sitting about a foot and a half from the TV, and it was just electric. It was exciting. It was everything that you could imagine it could be when you see your heroes at the time for the first time ever on TV in your living room. It was beyond belief. The crowd, the way Sullivan was introducing them, the whole experience was just it changed everybody's life. I know that I made online friends with Liberty DeVito. I know that his life was changed at that time. All the friends that are in my age group from the tribute band around my age, all affected by the Beatles coming to America on that day. And in fact, shortly after that, they went to D.C. They did a concert. They were in Central Park in New York before they went down to Washington, D.C. Then they went down to Miami and did more with Ed Sullivan the next week. We watched that too. Uh,
Wow, wow.
so,
Yeah,
so it was great.
Vince, again, we come from two generations. I can tell people, and doing previous research on the Ed Sullivan Show for a show I did, to kind of talk about the history of Ed Sullivan Show. Um, I got, of course, into the Beatles and their performance, and they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, of course, more than once, but this was their very first appearance. And I can tell you, it was kind of interesting. When I initially came across the performance, I'm watching it for the very first time. And of course, this is like just a couple of years back that I'm watching it. But even as somebody that didn't see it when it first appeared on TV, I don't know what it was about that performance, but you hear the girl screaming in the crowd, you hear the roar of the crowd, you, ah, you feel like you were there that night. You feel like you were in the audience.
Absolutely, absolutely, no question about it. It was a transcendent experience that changed my life starting that night. Now, their music was on the radio all the
Sure.
time. They had three, four, five hits going like at once. And I remember listening. My dad was with me, and I said, I think I can do that.
Yeah.
Just like that. I told my dad, hey, Dad, I think I can actually do that. Do what? Play the drums. I think I can do that. Side note, he had a friend who had a drum set and a son who was about 4 years older than me. So let me see if I can hook up you with this guy. I'll bring you over his house. Sure enough, I get behind the drum set for maybe 5 minutes. And he says to me, He says to my dad, the guy says to my dad, Tony, get this kid a drum set right now. Right
Wow.
now. So
Wow.
I could do my hands, I couldn't do my feet, but I was very coordinated with my hands. And so that changed my life. My set came, I think, the month before my birthday, September it came. So from February till it finally came, when I finally realized I thought I could do it, till it came for 6, 7 months, whatever it was, couldn't wait to play. And then I started professionally playing when I was 16, as we discussed before.
Sure.
So it took 4 years. I wasn't quite 13 yet. So I technically started drumming at 12. And then the rest is history. And it totally changed my life.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
again, just talking about how iconic the Beatles on Ed Sullivan was. I mean, people really got to go back to the 1964, the time when this has taken place. And this is what I kind of learned. It says that, like you said, the date of the Beatles' very first U.S. appearance was February 9th, 1964, and their first time to ever appear on U.S. television um, was on the Ed Sullivan Show. And again, we make that point because what I learned is this appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show, not was it only their first time appearing on U.S. TV, but it was really the start of what it became known as the British invasion, them coming over to the United States and playing on that TV show.
Right. And Beatlemania, it was a thing. It was a thing. Beatlemania was like it was everywhere. They even had about a week or so after the Washington, D.C. concert, get this,
Mm.
trading cards.
Yeah,
Trading cards. And we had the Beatles trading cards with a lot of the images were from the stage
yeah.
uh, in Ed Sullivan and in Central Park and all these different things. It was exciting. It was just exciting. That's all.
And now let's get into some of the music, the songs they actually played.
Sure.
All My Loving, Till There Was You, She Loves You, I Saw Her Standing There. Probably my favorite of those tunes would have to be I Saw Her Standing There.
Oh, absolutely. Very exciting. All My Lovin' to me, all of those songs were just really well played. And I want y'all out there to pay attention to Ringo's drumming. For you skeptics, how he became, oh, he's okay, wasn't fancy. That's called providing a backbeat. But he played with ferocity. Go watch the early Beatles performances and crushing those drums, just really totally crushing those drums. And I was like, that's the way you gotta play. You play with passion. Oh, and that's why when they changed from Pete Best to him, their producer in the studio didn't want Pete Best. And I want we want somebody else. They got Ringo, and that's what really catapulted them.
The
That
Beatles, yeah.
really,
This is also a very interesting time in music history because, sadly, Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, recently passed. And at the time, there was this thing with the Beach Boys, which was the iconic kind of American rock band at that time, or the popular band,
remember
versus
it well.
the Beatles. And then the Beatles come over here to the United States, and they just explode.
Absolutely. Our band Bangers does a lot of the 60s music and into the 70s. And so when Beatlemania came and the British invasion came, Dave Clark 5 was a big thing. People forget all these different bands, the Zombies, the Kinks, they all came because the Beatles kicked the door down in America. Their goal was to come to America. And I'm glad they did. Boy, it really changed everything.
And the Beatles opened the door for a lot of other British bands. Like you said, I mean, this was the start of a British invasion, and that should be noted because um, you mentioned the Kinks, where yeah, they were a great rock band out of Britain too, but they had a little more of harder edge than the Beatles. But at the same time, the Beatles, for anybody listening to this, may be surprised to learn that Helter Skelter was not a Motley Crue song originally. It was a Beatles tune.
That's right.
In fact, that's probably the closest to metal the Beatles ever got.
I know that a lot of the early albums had the cover songs
Yeah,
that were very much influenced from America. Please, Mr. Postman, and things of that ilk are on most of their really early works. And then when they came to America, here released on Capitol Records, I remember. So they had a few covers. Till There Was You. You know where that came from?
where?
The music, the Broadway production, The Music Man,
Oh wow.
The Music Man, and they Beatled it, they
Yeah,
Beatleized it, and but they did that with a lot of songs, and most of that was introduction for me of Motown. Even though Motown was starting to creep into American radio, they just as a side note, American radio at that time had everything going on.
sure, sure.
It had the British invasion. It had blues. It had rock. It had soul. It had Motown, Stax. It had everything going on. It had show tunes were in the top 40. All these different things were happening. So we got the best overall experience of what music was like. And then there was a top 40. The songs stayed in the top 40 for as long as they remained sellers. It went by sales,
Yeah,
and also think by listener requests.
yeah. And then another interesting thing I was reading and doing the research for today's episode, Vince, was that after the Beatles appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show for the very first time, believe it or not, sales of guitars and guitar equipment went up in the United States for first time in years because all of a sudden everybody seen the Beatles on that Sullivan Show. They wanted to be the Beatles.
Absolutely, and Ludwig drums. Ludwig drums. Gretsch was after with the Dave Clark Five, so that was just after. Now the Ludwig drums, my dad had to order from their English factory. So
Wow.
living in New York at the time on Long Island, they it took about 3 to 4 months to order them and have them shipped, and maybe even longer. But I know it was a long wait. It was, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
come
when those
on,
drums get in here.
get here.
Yeah, yeah,
So my first set was like what's in the background that you have there with that kid. It was that four-piece, but it was gold
wow,
sparkle, and I had that first. Then I wound up with these babies.
wow.
Also, also Ludwig's that I bought in 1970. My personal self, I bought those.
Wow.
So that's what's going on.
That's pretty impressive. And other thing, talking about the Beatles, I mean, at the time of Beatlemania starting to take place around this time, it's because the Beatles, I think, were the first band in maybe music history where it was not just about the front man. Everybody had their favorite Beatle. You might be a John Lennon fan, or maybe Paul McCartney was your guy, or Ringo or George. Each guy in the band had their individual kind of personality that
That's
fans
right.
kind of lock onto. Yeah,
That's right. And remember, right after that, A Hard Day's Night capitalized on the different personalities besides the music,
sure.
and they kind of recreated what they did in the Ed Sullivan Theater.
Yeah,
That was basically what they were trying to do. That was all shot in England, of course, but
yeah,
that was the idea of recreating the Beatlemania effect, the opening where they're running and people are running after them in the street. I'm sure that had something to do with how they lived back in that day. Must have been overwhelming, of course,
yeah.
just
And, and,
just to try to get through it all. They
sure.
they worked like dogs. They really
And
did.
yeah, and I wanted to also touch upon the fact that the hairstyle at the time, I think they called them the mop tops or whatever, but
That's right.
believe it or not, that was considered a long hair at the time.
Oh, extremely,
Yeah,
extremely. In
yeah,
fact, that was the joke amongst conservative people. All everybody
yeah,
except the youth. The youth loved it.
yeah,
It was refreshing to us and an identity. We had again talking about our generation. That was a generational change in clothing. They affected clothing and hairstyles, music styles, even politics,
Yeah.
how religion, drug usage. They changed literally that we know into the way it became over time.
In,
Just
in
what's an
fact,
incredible
another
time.
kind of Beatle thing among the Beatle kind of rumors, gossip was that the song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." Wait a minute, if you abbreviate that, it spells out LSD.
I don't think that wasn't John's intent.
Yeah, yeah,
That was his son Julian, a really little boy at the time, saying he drew a thing. Who's that? It's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Oh, and then John made the song out of what
yeah.
he
But
said. And then, of course, the harpsichord and all that stuff, that was all drug, LSD induced other lyrics based on, but right, it's not about LSD, but it's.
no, but I mean that sometimes other people their mind go places, and you're like, I don't know how they ever thought that up, but okay. Um,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but
well, the Beatles were fresh air. They really
but
were.
what I loved about the Beatles too, you're talking about their just the image. I mean, when they first came out, they were considered like they're such clean looking, nice guys, and then a few years down the line, after popularity, Beatlemania and everything happens, all the guys grow beards. They grow their hair even longer, and that was, believe it or not, somewhat controversial. Oh my God, they're growing up.
And then they went to India and did that whole thing and the sitar and upsetting people about being more popular than Jesus.
Yeah,
So they really they upended the world.
yeah, yeah. Um,
No, I'm just glad I got on the coattails
and then
of
they got some like little obscure songs that are just as good as the hits. I mean, I'll give you a couple. One song I really loved is kind of simple when you listen to it, but it's got a nice little beat. November, November Man. He's
oh, Nowhere Man.
Nowhere Man. That's it, Nowhere Man.
Nowhere Man. Yeah, absolutely. I've done that many times live.
And then I also liked there's a song on the Let It Be album. I Got a Feeling. I mean, kind of real fun lyrics there.
So listen, folks, if you get a chance, Google or YouTube, on YouTube rather, go on YouTube and search for the Beatles' first performance on Ed Sullivan and get a gander at what happened. If you've never seen it, I'm sure most of you have at this point,
Yeah,
but some people watching this that may not have, just go and do it and you'll see exactly what was going on. It was hysteria. It was
yeah,
from the moment they got off the plane with thousands of people out there at JFK, uh, which had just gotten renamed, or
yeah.
was well, they came in and just from that moment they got off the plane. They did an impromptu session right there as they got off the plane, and then it's Ed Sullivan a couple of days later, and crazy, just crazy.
And it's amazing, Vince, too, because at the time, let's also talk about the fact that TV was still black and white.
Oh yeah,
And you're watching this performance, even you go on YouTube and you watch it, like, man, I mean, you can feel the rawness, you can feel the graininess of a black and white, but it's a classic thing to kind of experience. If it might have been a few years before, you might have been listening to the Beatles on the radio because before TV ever existed, people would listen to like stuff like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. They would listen to it on the radio before there ever was TV and stuff like that.
that's right. TV came around
Yeah,
1950-ish, and one of the first things on TV was Lucy and Desi, I Love Lucy. So TV got transformed through the years, and by then, by the Beatles, there were TVs in everybody's
sure,
house.
sure.
More in color, but there were TVs in everybody's house. So 73 million watched it.
In fact, my own father shared with me back, in the 1950s, and that when TV was first coming out, that a lot of people, if would consider somebody, well, only people that have TVs are rich people. But of course,
That's right.
that's so much changed these days. Everybody's got a TV. Who doesn't? Yeah,
Well, we had one of the first color TVs in
yeah,
our neighborhood, which was 1965, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
And then they started to produce some of the TV shows in color, and some were still in black and white. So it took a year before or so before everything
Yeah.
turned over to color. And unfortunately, the early performances of the Beatles are in black and white, but that's, I think, what makes them
Yeah,
special.
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as a kid that grew up in the 1970s, man, it's like I remember watching show like reruns of shows like, let's say, Bewitched or I Dream of Jeannie, that they all of a sudden started making color versions, and you'd see where it's like now in living color or now in color vision.
Just mentioned my favorites. I
Yeah,
had the biggest crush on Elizabeth Montgomery.
who didn't, right?
And as it turned out, my wife, when I met her, looked like Elizabeth Montgomery. It just happened to be that way. So,
There you go.
bonus.
And you know, we should also make the point of what an influence Ed Sullivan had on pop culture in general. I mean, you always hear people talking about this Beatles performance when in reference to the Ed Sullivan Show, but he had a thing where he like would point his finger. He had all kinds of people on the show. Everybody from the Beatles. I talked to Carmine Appice once, who shared with me that Vanilla Fudge did a performance on there. I seen that they were awesome, and believe it or not, when they performed on the Ed Sullivan Show, that was before Carmine even had his famous mustache.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Carmine actually was at the drummer for the Fudge for my first ever concert.
Oh wow, amazing! And you know, also Ed Sullivan, he had this is going back, but he had a very early version of the Muppets, if you can believe that, before the Muppets became what they are today.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So the Sullivan Show has this, of course, a great stake in television history, and I'm glad the Beatles came to America and were on that show, and that we were all who were there at the time able to partake and be affected by it. Woodstock came out of it. The whole generational change came out of one band.
Yeah, and I'll share with you, Vince, why we decided to do an episode on this today was because um, at one point, you know, we were doing this other show called Remembering Woodstock, specifically on the Woodstock era. And when the show had kind of run its course, we talked about possibly doing a show on the British invasion. And it kind of turned into what we're doing now with Remembering Our Generations. But I thought, okay, in learning about this, I thought, you know, this was a start of the British invasion. So this would be a real good next episode for this series we're doing here.
Right. This is the start of the My Generation period.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It really is. And Ed Sullivan, I will also note, may he rest in peace. Um, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen the Beatles tribute, the Fab Four. I've seen them a couple times. They are great. I recommend anybody who's a Beatles fan to go see them. I've seen one of their shows where they had a guy actually get dressed up as Ed Sullivan. He
That's
came
right. They
out.
still do that. They still do that. And Artie,
Yeah,
and I forget who did it, Ron, is are friends of mine. So that's from being in the tribute world for
sure, sure. Yeah,
eons now.
yeah.
So there is probably as close as you can get amongst many. But they're probably about the top of the heap, I would say. Great guys too.
And then you know another great. I don't know if you refer. I don't know if you'd even refer them to as a band because they were basically a TV show. But a lot of people thought they were an actual band. The Monkees were heavily influenced by the Beatles. Were you at all a fan of the Monkees in the 1960s?
Well, right. Well, the Monkees came. The way they produced the show
Yeah,
was the American version of A Hard Day's Night.
yeah, yeah. Basically, yeah,
Basically, that was what it was. They were zany guys, counterculture, all that stuff. So yeah, what a time to be alive.
yeah.
Wow.
You know, this was end up being a great episode today, Vince. And I want to ask you. You mentioned A Hard Day's Night. Maybe there's a future episode on that, but I was curious when you saw that movie for the first time. What were your feelings about? Oh, these guys think they're movie stars. Were you a fan of it or what?
Oh, well, first of all, I was like the hugest Beatles fan ever. I'm still a big fan, and have played literally 100 of their tunes live
Wow.
through the years. Uh, and the first time I got into the theater to see it was in a theater with all kids somewhere around my age group going crazy in the theater. and it was beyond. It was so much magic, so
Yeah,
much magic. You got to know them better because you got to know their personalities, the way the writers wrote them.
yeah, yeah.
It
Now
was fun, sarcastic, and
here's
all
a
that.
fun question for you. Yellow Submarine versus Hard Day's Night. Is it possible to pick a favorite?
Oh, Hard Day's Night,
Yeah.
because it's the original.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. The other one, being the cartoon, was a little trippy, and if you were doing drugs, good for you.
Okay,
If
I
not,
get you.
good for
Yeah,
you. But yeah, that was also very, very interesting. Also, there was Help in
yeah,
between that I went to see in the theater as well. And but nothing can top Hard Day's Night.
yeah. It's interesting
Lester.
too. All those movies. I think at one point you could get them on DVD. I think they're not available anymore at this point, but I imagine down the line at some point they'll have put out a special anniversary edition or something like that. So we hope for that.
Well, you know what? I've seen it so many times. I don't think I've even wanted to collect it.
There you
So,
go. Yeah, it's in your rock and roll DNA, right, Vince?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Before we say goodbye, Vince, you want to say anything else to the folks before we wrap it up?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Anybody who does, it's an honor and a blessing for me to be able to share with you, and for you just to be there. I thank you, the audience, and thank you, Jason, for giving the venue to be able
And
to
I
do
thank you
all of
for
this.
being part of it because again, I couldn't do it without you, Vince. I mean, maybe I could, but what makes it fun is we did the previous show together, which was more of a radio podcast. This people actually get to see us. We get to see each other on camera, and I want people to know what I enjoy the most about it is the show is totally unscripted. I mean, we do our research for each episode as you do and I do, but we don't talk ahead of time what we're going to accept that hey we're going to do an episode on the Beatles, appearing on Ed Sullivan. You do your research that way when we show up you have about 30 minutes, you have about half a show and I have half a show, and we just create it as we do it, and it comes out very nice, I think.
It's curb your enthusiasm for music. It's just right off the cuff, right off the cuff. So,
And just to let people know, Vince, what we're going to be talking about next time, we're going to be talking about Jimi Hendrix and his his huge influence on the music world. And when you consider he died at the young age, I believe of 27, doesn't have a
27,
huge catalog of music, but he left his stamp.
Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, let's go.
Hey Joe, right?
Hey Joe, let's go. Hey Joe, let's go.